one of the country's best-known entrepreneurs, business leader, philanthropist, and founder of Phones for You. Hi, John.
Good afternoon, Mark.
Does Keir Starmer look like the kind of CEO Britain needs?
No, unfortunately not. But, when Keir Starmer first took over from the Labour Party, I thought he was a breath of fresh air after Jeremy Corbyn. And he was broadly supportive of the government in their COVID attempts. But like all politicians then, they seem to just have no option but to resort to condemning the opposition no matter what. And instead of being constructive, just end up being critical with a constructive comment. And I think Keir Starmer, like all politicians, has fallen exactly into that trap. Whilst not having a particular strong character or charisma to really lead and provide an alternative future for the Labour Party.
Two characteristics, two perceptions of Keir Starmer that have really stuck, John, are that he sits on the fence over major issues, and also that, frankly, he wants to be liked by everybody. Those certainly aren't great qualities in business, are they?
Well, they're no good at anything, really, because you've got to have the strength and character and the good judgment to back your own judgment and to force through changes that are going to be beneficial to a business or to a country. And I don't think Keir Starmer is the person. I do think he's a thoroughly decent guy. I think he's truthful, but I'm not sure that he'll make a good leader.
Do you consider Labour under this current leadership to be entrepreneurial enough, John?
Well, I think very few political parties are entrepreneurial enough. I think Labour definitely would not be. And I think there's a lot of problems within the Labour Party that Keir Starmer, if he's going to ever make the Labour Party electable, has got to eliminate. He's certainly got to eliminate totally any racism that has existed in the party and root that out. But it's very difficult because from what I understand of the Labour Party, it's endemic. This anti-Semitism, it seems to be endemic in some parts of the Labour Party and very difficult to get rid of. But I think he needs to do that. The Labour Party needs to be like everybody else, non-racist, utterly non-racist. And then they need to have very, very strong objectives going forward to make Britain great, to create wealth within Britain, to create GDP growth, and to show real leadership in doing that.
Keir Starmer has spoken in the Commons quite critically of billionaires, in particular focusing on a text exchange between the Prime Minister and the founder of Dyson, James Dyson. Do you feel that Keir Starmer is not talking to you, somebody that pays a lot of tax and is a job creator?
Well, I think one of the things that is wrong in the Labour Party is this sort of almost paranoid hatred of wealth. And I do understand that to some extent because, I'm the first to say that the rich-poor divide really does need to be reduced. But we can't do that by destroying entrepreneurialism and sort of destroying the golden goose that creates the jobs and creates the wealth. So it is an eternal challenge for any political party to try and get the rich to contribute more one way or another without disincentivizing the rich and causing them to go off and live in tax-free havens. So it is a huge challenge.
John, John, sorry to interrupt you. I mean, Tony Blair got big business on board, didn't he?
Yes, he did, but the Labour Party then did take a lot of money out of the economy through his reign and subsequent reigns, a lot of money through wireless licenses and so on and so forth. But I think Tony Blair, as a centre-right leader, a centre leader, was probably quite a good balance. Not that I was particularly a fan because I thought that he did a lot of things wrong. But it is very healthy for a country to have multiple parties to choose from, but both parties need to have a credible alternative that's good for all people.
I'd like to talk to you shortly about your plan for COVID recovery post-pandemic, John, a very creative and innovative plan. But first, can I ask you about Boris? Do you think that he is fit for purpose as the leader of this country?
Well, of course, this comes from Dominic Cummings, doesn't it? And the first thing to say there, I think this Dominic Cummings is a disgusting human being. He was a liar when he was in office. Boris supported him to the hilt, and arguably you could say that Boris should not have supported him because he lied and really was a bad example to the country. And yet Boris still supported him. You could criticise Boris for that, but not as much as you could criticise Dominic Cummings for then turning on Boris and showing him treacherous disloyalty. That said, if there are really bad things happening within government, they should be exposed, but not by a servant like Dominic Cummings, who's been looked after by Boris and is showing total disloyalty, but also is a liar in his own right, and I wouldn't trust him one jot.
Would you give him a job, John?
I would not give him a job under any circumstance.
What about as a janitor or something, you know, some very lowly task?
No, because I want to be able to trust my janitor. You know, one of my principles in life that no matter what employer I have, I respect them and I want them to be successful in what they do, and they must be truthful.
John, tell me about your rather innovative ideas for Britain's economic recovery post-pandemic.
Yeah, you know, this is the bit that I am disappointed with the government on, because I've been saying right over the last 12 months or more now that what we desperately need is a pandemic recovery plan. I called it CPR because CPR brings a patient back to life. And Cardwell pandemic recovery was meant to be exactly that. And it was investing in 4 major areas of the UK economy. One was in apprenticeship schemes to create 500,000 world-class apprenticeship schemes with all the leading companies in Britain to provide really gainful and useful training for our young people, so that when Britain's booming again in a few years' time, that those people have got really meaningful contribution to make to the economy. The second was to attract as much inward investment as we possibly could. Third was to build our infrastructure to really enable business to prosper by having the best infrastructure, that being, of course, road, rail, and internet services. And the final bit of that was to a very, very forward-thinking objective and very, very tough to achieve, but to create an energy city, an environmentally friendly, renewable energy city, where everybody living and working in that city was dedicated to the environment and driving technology forward, whether it be in renewable energy, recycled plastics, or whatever it was, to show the globe that we were the leaders in this environmental environment. And from that, we would create massive wealth for Britain, massive inward investment into Britain, and subsequently been able to export our products and our intellectual technology all over the world. And it's this sort of thinking that the politicians really need to encompass, to borrow the money now while it's relatively cheaply, invest it wisely in the future, and grow our GDP to such an extent that we don't need to raise taxes in order to make the poor better off. We don't need to raise taxes in order to pay down this huge debt we've got. We do it out of GDP growth and natural tax revenue growth.
John, brilliant to have you on the show. If you want to find out more about John's plans, you can go to his website, johncardwell.com.